Hey guys, today I'll be testing an affordable combo for headphone enthusiasts from SMSL Audio. And of course, SMSL is best known for the affordable stuff that anybody could get. And I've already covered plenty of those units like M200 DAC, SU-9 DAC, SP200 headphone amplifier, and SH-9 headphone amplifier. But today's combo is a little bit more affordable, but still feature-packed to its teeth. The newest SU-8S DAC is replacing the older SU-8, and of course the newest SH-8S feels like a massive upgrade to the older SH-8, especially when it comes to power output. You can have them both for a little less than 600 bucks, and it's time to check them if they are worth it or not. Design-wise, these are among the very few SMSL devices which aren't using weird and ugly looking cases. They don't have odd shapes, elongated bodies, tiny screens, or questionable volume knobs. They look like a miniature matte black metal bricks milled on CNC machines with just two panels attached on top and underneath them. As usual, SMSL moved most of the screws on their backs for a clean, minimalist look, and overall I find their build quality nice and I have close to zero complaints. As for controls, the amp reminds me quite a lot about old school amplifiers thanks to its heavy-duty mechanical switches on the front panel. There's a 4-pin XLR and a regular 1/4-inch headphone output on the left, and of course a volume wheel to its right. It has only a pair of RCA and XLR inputs, so sadly you cannot use it as a dedicated preamp. On the other hand, the SU-8S looks a little bit more futuristic with that 1.9-inch LCD screen in the middle and of course with a volume knob to its right. On its back you'll find an optical, coaxial and USB input, a Bluetooth antenna socket and two analog outputs coming in RCA and XLR flavors. As for the tech inside them, SMSL went with the latest ES9068 DAC chip of ESS Technologies that incorporates a full-blown MKW decoder in the same silicon. This particular chip is a current output chip, meaning that a current to voltage conversion stage needs to be built around it. Thankfully, SMSL went with 4 warm and natural sounding OPA 1612 op-amps that are better suited for ESS chipsets. There are 4 crystal clocks, the best XMOS receiver and a decent Bluetooth chipset can also be found inside. As for the amplifier, SMSL ditched those THX AAA modules in favor of their own precise linear feedback circuit modules that are pumping some serious 6 watts of power into 16 ohms. This is a huge upgrade over its predecessor that couldn't provide even a single watt of power in the same impedance. Alright guys, this is pretty much it, so let's hit some eardrums. First of all, I remind you that both units can be considered as entry-level devices in SMSL portfolio, and of course we need to treat them as such. So I find them clean, super detailed, highly transparent sounding. Actually, in this regard they are very impressive. They don't have distortion, they don't have noise, even at much higher volume levels. So in this regard I find them very impressive when it comes to technicalities. I find them pretty much on the same level, slightly below their SU-9 and SH-9. So this combo goes pretty much into the same direction sound-wise, so choosing linearity, a very honest reproduction of music, but lacking when it comes to emotional side of music reproduction. I also find them very impressive when it comes to transient response, when it comes to speed more exactly. These are going in and out lightning fast, so I find them very fast sounding, so with very fast decays. But both units aren't really ass-kicking when it comes to bass slam, so don't expect Thor's hammer punch and impact when it comes to bass slam, because they can't really pound as hard as a native Class A transistor-based amplifier. For that you'll need to shell a lot more cash. All in all, I find them very impressive when it comes to technicalities, when it comes to speed, decay, cleanness, distortion, noise, nothing like that, but less so when it comes to just making me move to the rhythm of the music. So I find them actually quite dead neutral, so very linear, straight as a line. They don't sound warm, they don't sound smooth. Even with all those sound tuning enabled, I still find them quite linear actually. While there is plenty of information up top, so past top octave in the treble, all that is very textured, very clean, very defined. There is a little bit of a lack of refinement, so sometimes all that energy could appear as clinical, a little bit fatiguing in long listening sessions. I would personally never pair this combo with bright sounding, with linear sounding headphones, so stay away from HiFiMan HE1000 for 400 SE. I don't find that those headphones pairing very well with this one. But Kenerton headphones, Apos Caspian, Odyssey headphones worked just amazing out of this combo. That linear mid-range and a higher treble output worked as a cure, almost as a hardware parametric equalizer that counterbalanced all the issues of those headphones. In terms of noise floor, SMSL newest amp modules were created to kill the noise at the inception, so all that bad energy wouldn't move to your precious headphones, to your very sensitive equipment like IEMs, for example. And of course I'm having a very strong sense of deja vu because THX 888 and of course NFCA amplifier modules of topping are doing pretty much the same, slightly different because those are different topologies. So of course with the newest modules, with switching mode power supply, with plenty of voltage regulation, all that noise dropped to around 1.3 microvolts, and believe me, those are very impressive numbers, pretty much in line with some of the best headphone amplifiers that I know, but I needed to hear it to believe it, so I engaged those Fire FA9 IEMs that are super sensitive, something like 130 dB per 1 milliwatt of power. I went on the low gain, on maximum volume, and I couldn't detect any kind of noise whatsoever. So this little combo right here is very impressive when it comes to pairing with IEMs. If you do that, I'm not using IEMs with desktop setups, but if you do, this is an outstanding combo, and I couldn't detect any kind of noise. The only negative thing that I could say about this amplifier is that at the lowest volume setting, on the low gain, I can still hear the music playing in the background, and if I go on the high gain, all that is slightly louder. Apart from that, you would never hear any disturbing hisses or noises, making this combo extremely IEM friendly. In terms of detailed retrieval and transparency, this little combo, SMSL combo right here, wants to impress you with three things. One is absolute linearity in the frequency response, so there is a straight line in the frequency response. Secondly, a complete lack of distortion and noise with IEMs. And thirdly, of course, they will sound super clean, super transparent, highly detailed, putting everything on the plate. So undeniably, I find them very clean sounding. And if I would put them apart in two different setups with some higher grade electronics, then I would be impressed a little bit more by the amplifier that I find slightly more detailed sounding, slightly more transparent. And I do believe that their strongest weapon is also their biggest downfall. So while I can hear everything without flexing my brain too much, without focusing on anything in particular, everything just comes in waves, all those details. They can sound a little bit too serious at times, slightly more robotic at times, so a little bit clinical sometimes, without putting flesh on those skinny bones, without making me move to the rhythm of the music, without putting goosebumps all over my body. So there is little to no warmth and smoothness with this combo. After splitting them apart, it was clear that this DAC right here doesn't sound as clean, as detailed to their SU-9 and to their higher priced D1 SE. So it was clean, it was colorless, it was completely noiseless, but it wasn't showing the last drop of information from my tunes as other units did. In terms of sheer power, 6 watts into 16 ohms is actually a lot of power, or too much power considering the sheer size and of course the footprint of this amplifier. And if you don't want to drive the hardest loads, the heaviest loads like HiFiMan Susvara HE6, then you could happily live with this amplifier alone, and it could drive pretty much everything. So from my collection, everything worked except for the Half-Master of course, that needs a lot more power. So from tiny IEMs to portable over-ears to desktop dynamic headphones to desktop planar magnetic headphones, everything worked just amazing. Some of them didn't even need the high gain settings, like the Kenerton Wodan and ZH Phobos worked amazing on the low gain. High gain was reserved only for something like Odyssey LCD4 and Half a Man Aria, something like that. So of course dynamics were in place, everything was super nimble, super fast sounding. It was tightly controlling the headphone drivers of my headphones. I didn't hear any flabbiness, any muddiness in the bass. All that was just tightly controlled, very strict sounding in a way. So yeah, I believe that I had all the signs of a great control over the headphone drivers. It really worked with them all, except for the Half-Master that really needs a power amplifier to shine at its best. In terms of transient response, you should know that SMSL actually halved the power supply and of course the capacitance compared to the SU-9 and SH-9 headphone amplifier, and that means two things are going to happen. One, this combo is pretty much unstoppable when it comes to speed, when it comes to decay. They sound super nimble, super fast. And two, they can't properly punch when it comes to bass slam, so they aren't really impressive in this department. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. Having a close to zero output impedance means that the damping factor shouldn't be affected at all. You can even try listen to very low impedance headphones like 8 ohms, like 10 ohms, 16 ohms, no problem. And of course, all those will sound exactly as fast, exactly as nimble. Of course, being an entry-level amplifier and entry-level DAC, there would be always some compromises down the road, and I believe that the bass slam is actually the biggest compromise of this combo right here, but especially of the amp that just cannot kick and cannot deliver just a punchy bass line. Even with bass impressive headphones like Odyssey LCD4, that didn't really happen. In my humble opinion, transient response is only half good because it's pretty great when it comes to speed, but not so much when it comes to landing punches. So please don't expect Thor's hammer, slam and impact, as for something like that, a transistor-based amplifier biased into class A would be mandatory. As for soundstage, I feel that the DAC right here sounds slightly bigger, slightly airier, never limiting the soundstage in a high-end loudspeaker setup, while the amplifier sounds smaller, so like my music was recorded in some cozier rooms, in smaller rooms. I believe that SMSL nicely balanced this combo right here so that the DAC would sound just big and airy and the amplifier would sound just super detailed and clean. And the final outcome is pretty much a medium-sized soundstage size that could sometimes go past my shoulder level with some open back headphones, but doesn't happen very often. In my opinion, this combo right here reminds me a lot actually about the sound of THX AAA and about NFC amplifiers of topping that are going into the same direction, so choosing technicalities instead of a big scale or a very warm tonality. On a positive note, the DAC itself is working in a true balancer configuration, giving just a helping hand, a huge helping hand to the amplifier, carefully placing all the notes in the scenery and creating a sensation of air and three-dimensionality. When it comes to frequency response, I believe that both units are humming the same song and are going into the same direction, just choosing linearity above anything else. So as you can expect, both are sounding quite impressive in the bass. But I believe the DAC is slightly more impressive in the bass and gives a slight helping hand to the amplifier, so solving that weaker bass slam that I was mentioning. I believe both sound pretty much undistorted, so they deliver a high quality type of bass. Quantity wise, sometimes I wanted a little bit more, especially with several planar magnetic headphones that are just demanding a little bit more current from the amplifier. Especially Odyssey LCD4. They sounded great, I really enjoyed them, but I wanted a little bit more bass lamp, a little bit more definition, a bit more quantity, but not quality, because quality-wise there is a lot of this impressive in the quality department. When it comes to mid-range, it was an amazing idea putting OPA op-amps in both units, so even the amplifier has OPA op-amps as current amplifiers, as voltage amplifiers, because that slightly elevated a little bit the mid-range presence, so they wouldn't sound super clinical or super boring. So in this regard, I find them slightly more impressive than THX AAA amplifiers, so a slightly higher mid-range presence, but still they cannot emulate the sound of transistor-based, of tube-based amplifiers. They don't have as much warmth, as much smoothness, as much meat on the bone. So there is, I find them actually linear again in the mid-range, so nothing more to add in here. Sometimes I wanted a little bit more with something like RZH Phobos, with HiFi headphones. I wanted a little bit more presence in the mid-range, but it's okay as it is, so linearity is not that bad. As for treble, I find that both units are going for a super extended treble delivery, so even going past top octave, so past 16 kHz, there is plenty of information on both devices. All that was just defined, super clean, super sharp in a way. Sometimes it was too much treble energy, sometimes it was just right, but all in all, I believe that they have a linear treble performance in a way. So rock and metal sounded sometimes raw and unpolished, but that's okay because those musical genres should sound like that. There was a slightly higher thumb, slightly higher impact with snare drum hits, with cymbals, and of course that was very pleasing, especially with rock and metal. So I believe the treble performance is actually outstanding. Most probably the best part of this amplifier, of this combo, I'm sorry. Overall, the frequency response felt really complete and extended from the lowest pits of the sub-bass to the highest mountain peaks of the upper treble, so there aren't any anomalies, rises or drops anywhere, but you'll certainly get a little bit higher treble energy. As for my conclusions, their newest amp modules are pumping gobs of clean, undistorted power, and this amplifier right here could easily be the last one you'll ever need if you don't intend on driving some of the hardest loads and you don't like your music colored, super smooth, super mellow sounding, something like that. This combo right here actually chooses absolute linearity, so honesty, straight as a line, transparency, and with all due respect, these are actually the greatest pillars of audiophilia, as you cannot possibly have a great audio performance without winning on technicalities. While this combo right here won't challenge the best transistor-based amplifiers, nor the best R2R units, they will surely give you a very serious fight versus some pricier units any time of the day. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed my review. My full in-depth review can be found on my website. In case you want to support this channel, please subscribe to it, and as usual, listen to my music, be positive, and I'll see you soon. Cheers!